Hi, welcome to Maggie Chats Books. Today I'm going to do something a bit different. If you watch my September TBR, you will know that I am reading 5 of the Hugo Award-winning books from this year, a couple from last year, as well as doing a sci-fi challenge that was started by Beckie from the channel Beckie Bookworm. What I thought I would do is do a weekly wrap-up of the books that I've read that week and give my view on the books. Before I start, I would like to say that I like real science fiction in that the book deals with science that's advanced for where we are with science at the time the book was written. Fantasy to me is supernatural or magic, so I have seen a lot of books labeled as science fiction that are more fantasy to me. I love science fiction. I like fantasy, so if you see my reviews are a bit different from some people's, it's because fantasy is really not my genre, although I do like some fantasy books. So I'll start. I read 3 books so far. The first book I read was N.K. Jemisin's The 5th Season. This is the Hugo Award winner for 2016, and it is a first book in a series. In fact, all 3 of the books I read were first books in the series, so that was a little bit different. This book is a fantasy book. It takes place in a world where there's one big continent, I believe surrounded by ocean. There are some islands off of this continent, but for the most part the continent is as Earth was at one time, all together before eruptions and everything divided it. So there are fault lines that run underneath this continent. There are volcanoes. It's very volatile. Therefore, there's 5 seasons that this continent goes through. When it hits the 5th season, which is where we begin the book, the 5th season is apocalyptic type where many deaths occur and the world almost starts over. So this is where it begins, and we follow 3 different storylines. The first is a mother who is probably in her 30s. She is an origin. This is a person who is able to deal with the earth. They can move rocks, they can stop the earthquakes from happening, they can calm volcanoes, and they are feared by the people who aren't origins because they do have a lot of control over the earth and can pretty much destroy an entire city. But the people that are origins are trained to hone their skills, and they are able to help society, but they're also treated poorly and almost like slaves. So this mother has hidden that she's an origin and is married and has 2 children, a son and a daughter. When you first meet her, she has discovered that her son has been killed by her husband, who's discovered that he's an origin. And her daughter, he has taken the daughter off to someplace she doesn't know. So she goes to try to find them. The next story that you have is a young girl who is discovered to be an origin by her parents. They have called the school to come get her because they fear her, and she is taken to the school to start her training. The third story that we have is a 20-year-old girl who has already completed some of her training in the school. She has passed tests which give her rings which show the level that you are at. She has 4 rings so far. The person that she goes with on her adventure has 10 rings. They go off to handle an issue at a city that they're trained to do. So that's the story that goes with her. There are a lot of things in this book that are different people. The people are very diverse. There are special skills that many people have. There are stone eaters. There are guardians. There are people that are not of this world, maybe aliens. You don't know yet. You don't get the full realm of what the powers are of any people within this book. You get the 3 stories. There's a nice connection from the stories. The problem I had with this book is that it cannot stand on its own. There is no ending to this book. You're not given a whole lot of information about some things within the world. You have an idea of what the world is like. You have an idea of the characters that you're introduced to, but there's nothing that can close or provide closure to this book. So if you enjoy it, you want to read the next book, but this one could not stand on its own. So for that reason, I gave this one 4 stars. It is also fantasy, which isn't my favorite, though I did enjoy it. So people that like fantasy would probably really enjoy this one, maybe give it 5 stars, and I've seen a lot of people that have. But for me, because it can't stand on its own and you have to read other books to get the full story, which I do want to, and I do have The Obelisk, which is the next book, which I will try to get to this month, I would have to say that this one is a 4-star book for me. The next book I read was Every Hearted Doorway by Seanan McGuire. This book takes place in modern day America. It is a 2-part book that is about children who have gone into doorways within their houses or other areas. It has taken them to a different world. There are 4 main worlds and quite a few sub-worlds that the children have gone in. When they return from these worlds, the parents think they were either kidnapped or they were runaways that returned. When the children try to tell them where they've been, the children talk about the worlds that they came from. The parents think that they are traumatized, making things up, and feel like they need help. There's a boarding school that will take them, the children in, and help rehabilitate them, or that's what they tell their parents. The owner of the boarding school has been through a doorway before, so she knows what the children are going through, and she helps them handle the loss that they feel when they come back from the world that they want to return to. Now the worlds are very different. One is a nonsense world. Our main character, Nancy, is from a world that's led by the Lord of Death. So you don't understand why she wants to return. The world that she came from was very disciplined. It was very dark, but she wants to return. That's all she can think about. All the children in the school want to return as well. We are told that many times the doorways don't open again and the children can't go back. So they are trying to help them learn to accept that. So that was the first half of the book. The second half of the book, I felt like we would get more about the worlds. We would find out why the children wanted to go back. We would find out more about the characters, develop them a bit more, because this is the first in a series, and I thought this was a lot of setup. But instead, the second half of the book starts with a murder mystery. And that's what consumes the entire second half of the book. So any character development stops, any world building stops, and you deal with this conflict that seems to be just thrown in so that they would have a conflict resolution in the book before it ended. Everything seemed rushed in this book. I didn't feel any connection to any of the characters. I didn't understand why these kids wanted to return to these sometimes horrible worlds. So I really felt a big loss, and if that was the point of the book so that I would want to read the next one, I felt really cheated. I honestly didn't care for this book after the first part ended. I thought the second part was just didn't belong in the book at all, and I gave it 2.5 stars. I rounded it up to 3. And the last book that I read this week is Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. And this is a very, very short book. I think it's about 90 pages. And it is also the first in the Binti series. It is a book about a young 16-year-old girl who's from the Himba tribe. She is a very smart girl, very smart in math. She is accepted to a university, but her people, the Himbas, do not leave their homeland. They are very connected to their land, and it is their tradition to stay with the land. So she decides that she is going to go ahead and go to the university, which is in outer space. So one night she leaves and gets on a spaceship to go to the university. The book is about her dealings on the spaceship as she's traveling to the university, and I won't say much more than that other than she is a very strong-willed girl. She is very smart, and she is very still connected with her homeland and the things that she was taught and her customs. So it's a really, really good book. I very much enjoyed it. It is a book that can stand on its own, but it does make you want to read the next book, which is called Home. And I hope it goes back to where she's from, because her homeland sounds very interesting and I'd like to learn more about that. But I thought this was a really, really good book. It is, there is some science fiction, but it's mostly fantasy. I did like that a lot. I thought it was a good balance for me. This one I gave 5 stars. I thought it was really, really good, and I'm looking forward to reading Home. So that is my science fiction and fantasy wrap up for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've read any of these books, please let me know what you thought of them. And I will talk to you later. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.